All right, Exeter TV here to tell you guys are live.
Thank you.
We're live. Thank you.
It's alive. Oh,
All right, so let's,
Halloween.
I will make it official here. Good afternoon, everyone. As the chair of the Facilities Advisory Committee, I am declaring that an emergency exists, and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91A2(3)B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined that gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing effort to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with this determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing the meeting remotely, even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner. Under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct apply. We're going to start the meeting by doing a roll call. When each member states their name, please state whether there's anyone else in the room with you. Amanda Kelly?
Yeah, Amanda Kelly, I'm here, and Ryan Kelly will very likely be walking into the room for the majority of the meeting.
Chris Weeks?
I am here, and I am alone in my study.
Peter Lennon?
I am here and alone.
Mark Layton? Mark Layton is not here as of yet. I am Robert Corson, and I am here alone. Just as another aside, if people want to use the raise hand feature on the Zoom, we'll look to see if there's any questions that come from the public. With that said, we're going to start with our agenda. We have the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. I don't know if everyone got an opportunity to take a look at those. I
did. The only comment I had, Peter, there was one thing on the town hall steeple renovation. It said there was corrosion or something that was found. I forget exactly what was found that was slowing it down.
Right. It was corrosion. It was like, they opened up the roof and said, whoa, we didn't really expect that much. And that's what, and Russ answered in the affirmative when I asked him if that was the issue that required additional work or took additional time. So that's where that came from.
It's a minor item. I just didn't know if it was a metal issue or it was a wood issue.
Well, I hate to say this, but I wasn't specific. And he wasn't in response. I don't know how old the roofs, when the last time the roof was done, 10 or 15 years ago? It could be either.
Okay.
Or both.
Otherwise, everything looked good. I just wasn't sure about that terminology.
I'm going to step back for just a second. Mark has joined us. So Mark Layton, could you say your name and that if there's anybody in the room with you?
I'm Mark Layton, and I'm by myself in my office.
Okay, we're actually reviewing the meeting minutes, and just if there's any comments on the meeting minutes from the previous meeting.
No comments from me. I looked at them, and so I don't have anything.
Amanda, any comments from you?
Nope.
With that said, do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes as they stand?
Sure, I'll move to accept the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
For the sake of vote, so Chris?
Yes, accept.
Mark Layton?
Yes.
Amanda Kelly?
Yes.
Peter Lennon?
Yes.
Rob Corson? Yes. Okay. We got through the minutes. I think per the meeting minutes, obviously it was the comments that I sent around and the status of our RFP. Basically, the comments from the last meeting were that it was ready to go, but it lacked funding. So I think that part of our question really ultimately is how do we want to move forward with this, and do we petition either the DPW or the select board or somebody to. Okay, so we have Dave Sharples has his hand raised.
Is he here?
Can Hillary, can we let Dave Sharples in as a participant?
Can do.
Thank you.
There you go.
Panelist, I meant. There's Dave.
All right. I just wanted to be part of the group. I was sitting
You were
there.
knocking on the door, but no one would let you in, huh?
Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
So just going back to we were just obviously going through the RFP and specifically for our facilities conditions assessment, and where this will be, I think, year 3 without funding. So we're really wondering how we can get something into some budget as part of our 2021 budget, so that we can move forward for at least a portion of our work that we've been planning now for for 2 years. So I know whether this is something that we just need to go back to Russ and to Daryl with and make a plea through that portion. So any advice on what direction we should go would be great.
Rob, I thought we were going to issue it at least so we would have a pretty hard number of what we could ask for.
Right, but the issue be we talked about that 6 months ago, and it didn't go anywhere. So the reality is that was how we were going to build our budget for 2021.
We talked about it, but why can't we issue the RFP?
I think we can, but the problem is there's no money.
No, I understand that, but at least we would have a hard number that we could go hunt for then.
Or can we at least have a conversation with a company that would be interested in doing it to get a budget number? I mean, I don't know what the procurement laws are for the town, but I mean, we've given an educated guess on what we think it's going to cost, but it would be good is to get something in front of an actual consultant that would do it and see what their thoughts are. I mean, Dave, I don't know if we can, what the legal requirements are to do something like that. If we shared a draft RFP with somebody, I mean, how does that work?
Well, I just texted Russ because it's more of a question for Russ, but he's saying the same thing. Yes, he's recommending have them go to a select board. Have you folks go to a select board meeting. It needs to go into the budget. So you could, because the way the process works would be, the budget review committee sends it, but then the select board review it prior to sending it to the voters, and they can, make amendments to it. So I think he's suggesting go to the select board and see.
But now, or I mean, next year during the budgeting process. I mean, it's right now.
Yeah. This is the time to do it.
The budget, it's in front of the budget review committee right now is having their, meetings. I think there's a meeting tonight. There's meetings last week. I was there in front of them a couple of weeks ago. So they're going to go through their process and then make a recommendation to the select board. And then the select board is going to, I don't have the quite the exact dates of those budget hearings right in front of me, but I would recommend, do you have a ballpark figure? Do you have an estimate of what it will cost for this? Okay. So that's how I would recommend.
Why should we wait for the select board, which is the last train in the station? Why shouldn't we go to the budget recommendations committee with whatever number we feel comfortable with for the first year of the effort and try to get them to allocate that money, whether it's out of the 100,000 for maintenance projects or out of some other line item? If we wait until the select board, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the select board not to add money. And if we haven't gone to the budget committee first, the budget committee is going to say, well, we never heard of this and we didn't have a chance to rule on it. Now, if they're in a generous mood, they might say, well, this is a good idea. We think it ought to be funded. But if they're not in a generous mood because they've had to cut a bunch of stuff out of the budget request already, then that undermines our case with the select board. So if we're going to go to somebody, I believe we ought to go before the select board and we ought to go to the budget committee. Or we should try to get you and Russ to find the money for us somewhere, whether it's in the maintenance budget by setting priorities among these maintenance items or somewhere else in the budget.
And ultimately that budget, it falls within the DPW area, I would assume, is that where most of this comes from.
So I think you can always reach out to, the budget review committee to see, because I think DPW's tonight, they've already done general government. I would reach out to the chair if that's what you wish to do.
Yep.
Reach out to the chair to see, if and when you could speak to them. Certainly,
Well, I mean, so the
reach out.
Sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. Certainly you can reach out to them. I don't see any issue with that.
Well, I mean, to me, I would say that we've been talking about this since last budget cycle, and DPW did not include this as a line item in the maintenance projects, right? So it's not they're not making it a priority in their minds, that there's other higher priorities. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, I think we should. I mean, I don't know if Jennifer Perry was asked, so does she support it? Then I think she would say only if she gets an additional 50,000, probably, right? I mean, they would have included it already if they felt like it was a high enough priority over those projects that are on that list right now.
I've come a little late to the process. Did you actually have those conversations with them about including it in their budget?
No, but we've had this, I mean, a year ago, this is what we were talking about, maybe it was 9 months ago, is that this budget was where there was at that time, there was money that was 50,000 that hadn't been spent, or maybe it wasn't 50, it was some sort of money that, and that's where it would be money that was in that budget would be allocated towards this. And then the RFP just never, so anyways, that's why, I mean, this isn't news or new to them that we wanted to do this, and that was where it would have been appropriated, I guess. Right? Does anybody else remember that? I mean, that's what we were talking about last.
Yeah, I think we were debating if the town hall didn't start work right away, that potentially the money that was slated from last year could have been used to fund the FCA. So I think obviously it's between Russ and Jen and copying Daryl to say, this is, we need something to get into the budget. And even if it's not the 50,000, it's some value that we determined last year was we could probably look at less than that to at least get some of this work started.
Who's Daryl?
He's our select board liaison.
Oh, I would say, sorry, got it. That Daryl.
Yeah,
Yep.
We never formally requested any money from DPW. It's just that was the money that Russ said potentially could be there. So we've never really asked anybody for anything.
No. I mean, you're right. We never really.
I guess that's on us. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's on us, but I would also say that it's not. I mean, if someone in DPW was supporting this, then they would have said, this is a good idea. Let's see if we can get this in there. But that's not there, right? I mean, we're the ones that have to bring it back. So
yeah, we might not have championed it as much to them, and also they could fill up, 3 times the amount of DPW projects that they have now, I think. So
I agree. I mean, I'm not saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying we'll never be a priority to them. So we'll have to. We got to find our own way here.
Well, no, I think you're right, Chris. I think you're right. They're probably right as far as the priorities. I think it's going to come down to increasing that, or again, separate, right? That there's money that is added to the budget for whatever, and I think it would be really good is to try to get a better number from a consultant that does this for town municipalities, that we can say this is the numbers we were using are from us, right? This is what we're basing it off a year ago on what the person was doing on our campus, and so anyways.
So who would be responsible for getting that line item, say, from 100 to 150,000 for a year? Is that the BRC can make the recommendation and then select?
It would have to. I think it would have to be a request from the department to request the money, and we also had that debate of whether it's it's in the budget or whether it's a warrant article, for the value. So. I think that your comments are correct. We would need to specifically request a value from both DPW and Russ and group to seek funding. So does everyone feel that that's a direction as to, and what value do we think we want to ask for?
Prior to that, though, too, Mark, you had mentioned showing the RFP, or at least reviewing it with somebody to kind of with a potential vendor to get a cost estimate. Can we do that? I think, Dave, you said you would ask Russ about that, but I guess that's what I'd like to know first, if we can show that to a prospective vendor and get a price on it.
I've done that before. Like example, the public safety study that we're looking at, that we had in the CIP, and the 200,000 as the kind of best number we have at the moment. I have people in the industry that I contacted personally. I provide them a scope of work. I kind of do pick folks that aren't going to bid on that, I don't want that to be a conflict. So I found someone, and actually someone is taking that and looking at it right now and developing a number based on that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The problem is I don't know, how many times can you go to that well for those kind of professionals to invest that time without actually, with a chance of a proposal. But the answer is we could do it. Yes, I'm sure we could shop it around. We work with a lot of consultants, and I'm happy to try to do that. I just can't think of anybody on the top of my head I would ask.
Well, Dave, we've already looked into this. We've already come up with Mark, I think we've got a list of like 3 or 4 potential vendors. They're not just local architecture firms. These are firms that specialize in facility condition assessments. So I don't know, is there one of those that we could bounce this off of?
I think, and for me, I'd like to be able to go for funding this year. That's, and by the time we get a budget number, it's going to be too late. So I think we need to get something into the queue, but that's me. I don't know if that's a good, what does everybody else feel about trying to get some number in for this year?
I think it's a good idea, Rob.
I would agree with you.
Maybe it just be contingent on, you can just say that this is what we're estimating from previous work, but what can we do it concurrently? I wouldn't mind meeting.
Yes.
Go back to that list, and through this committee, we meet with a couple of those vendors and share a draft with them and just refine those numbers. You know what I mean? I definitely agree with you. I'd like to get something in, because we have to wait a whole nother year, right?
Right.
Before we
I would agree with both of you. I don't think we should wait any longer. even if we can get feedback, I agree we should do concurrently, go to someone we think might give us a decent, sanity check, whatever, give us a round number. But even if we don't get that answer from them, I personally would rely on the architect and the architects and engineers and Amanda to give us a decent budget number, and I can always kibitz on it. And if the lower the number for whatever we view as the most important first year of the effort, the better. And if it's only quote unquote only 25,000, that's fine. The lower the number, the less scary it is to the budget committee, and less scary it is to the select board. And the easier it is to put into a line item as opposed to let it hang out as a warrant article.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, we can definitely go ahead and try to get the funding. I know, Mark, what number did we throw at this earlier?
I don't remember. Yeah.
So
I think it was bigger than 50. I think it was
100, like 100,000 was the what I had done at the hospital, which was about 600,000 square feet, which is 96,000. And that was quite a few years ago.
I don't think we have anywhere near 600,000 square feet either.
No, exactly. But it
does shake out to a price per square foot. I remember Peter from, I forget the company now, Mark, that does that service at PEA.
Yeah, it's Sightlines. It's
Sightlines, that's who it is.
Yeah, there's different things though, right? There's like you have the cost. It depends on. So for us, we bought their program, right? So
right.
There's a base cost for that. You buy that, and then there's the field work of doing the inspections, and that's pretty much a square foot cost. I mean, that's like 5 cents a square foot or something like that. It'll come out to that, but there's different deliverables, right? But there's like that first the initial setup fee, and then there's hosting fees and stuff like that. But I don't think the town needs a system as robust as what we have, just because we have more buildings and we're doing more with it. I think it's, that's where I would think that there's going to be this initial cost of like, well, say it's 10,000 for us to do this program, to build this program around your buildings, and then another 15 or something to come out and do the inspections. So it'd probably be more than that, but, and that's, like I said, it was the square foot plus reimbursables, right?
Yep. And we also said that we could actually go through and target certain buildings. And the reality is that from a survey standpoint, we could say, look, we want to do public safety and we want to do, some other building and make that the first phase of it, but get the base database started and then select a couple of buildings to begin to populate that.
Yeah, and like the DPW and now the public safety complex, I mean, they'll take the data that's already been done, right? At the wheel. So if DP in the previous report that was done in whatever that was in 2015 or whatever it was, they'll take that, right? So that will be helpful, and then just build on that, and then come out and do the field verifications to say and put it in their own formats. I don't mind if Rob, if you want to send me the RFP again, and then those lists of consultants, I don't mind reaching out to them and starting that conversation with them and just asking. I mean, some of that stuff they'll probably share pretty easily. Just say that, our flat fee is this, and I just can't remember what the square footage was and things like that. So if you want to share that with Rob, it's up to you guys. I don't mind taking the lead on that.
And then I think, that'll be our kind of two-prong approach. So we'll also solicit and 25 as a value, is at least a starting value, probably could get us going. It could mobilize something.
I think so.
It seems like it, right? I mean, at least to get something, at least maybe it's only a couple buildings, but at least it gets. I can try to find the proposals that we got a couple years ago.
So Rob, on the
I would agree.
Rob, on the budgeting side, then do we have to write up a request to submit to the select board? Or the
that's-
DPW?
That is what we're going to do. We're going to write up a request and submit that both to I think DPW and to Russ and group.
Okay.
Well, okay, now, but DPW and Russ, but does that same thing go to the Budget Recommendations Committee, or do we just wait and go to the Select Board?
That's a good question, Peter. Again, not knowing exactly, I know that they're doing DPW tonight. So the question would be is maybe sending a note to the BRC and just saying that we're looking to add this, and then maybe a note to Jennifer and to BRC saying we're requesting $25,000 to initiate this facilities conditions assessment. Did you guys get a time to talk to BRC at all?
Actually, yeah, I got an update on that. I did talk to Bob Kelly on the phone tonight, just as a quick introduction and just to kind of discuss what the goals were. And we'll get together. Peter and I will get together with them next week. He doesn't have an exact date in mind, but he's hoping by tomorrow to let us know when we can get together. So that'll just be an initial exploratory discussion on what they're looking to do and what we do and maybe how we can work together to get these projects successfully initiated and completed.
Perfect. So next on our, obviously we've looked at the library renovations.
Wait, Rob, sorry to be a pain in the butt here, but that's my job. Are you going to go to, who's going to write the budget request? And who's going to go to Bob Kelly with it? And to Russ and to Jen Perry? And when is that going to be done?
I will do it, and I'll do it as an email to them, and I'll do it before that. I know they're meeting at 6:30 or whatever.
Peter, we can discuss with them next week too when we meet with a subset of their group there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
He wants to meet at the DPW in the big conference room, which I said is good.
Fine.
There isn't really anything that I've heard of any news on anything for Parks and Rec accepting the small renovation projects and HVAC projects, which are on the maintenance list for 2021. Is there any update on that, Dave, at all? Is anything new that's come up with for that?
Is Dave still here?
No, I don't see him.
I don't either.
Okay. And we obviously have the public safety and the DPW draft letter. I'll save those to last. One of the comments that Peter had was on the maintenance projects, which is the next item on the list, is again, after going through that list, are there any things on that we see that we want more information about or want to weigh in on?
I didn't see anything that I mean, it looked fine to me.
Mark, is Mark still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. But no, I don't. There's nothing nothing caught my eye on that list.
Oh, okay, I had a question though, Mark, based on something you said at the end of last meeting when we first got the list, or whatever meeting we first got the list. You suggested that on this maintenance list were projects that were being dedicated to some of the buildings in town that we think are in play, my words, not yours, for the near future in Exeter facilities plans. And I believe you might have mentioned the public safety complex, but I don't know that. But there's obviously the public safety complex, there's the town hall, and there's the Parks and Recreation building. And so the question is, are we comfortable with these projects going forward if we think that within some near future time, we're not going to be in those buildings? And I don't know what the answer is, because these are pretty near term, and some of them seem to be more useful or necessary than others. But you raised that, Mark, and I wanted to pursue it just to see whether or not any of these items, and I hate to say this, but if we do question any of these items, then an ancillary benefit to that is that we can suggest that that money be used for the FCA. That's not the reason to go after that money or to say anything about that money. But if we do have issues about those projects, does that provide us an entry into funding the FCA?
So I think one of my questions too was to see the list or see the projects that didn't make the list. I mean, I think to me that's where it's hard to say that these are the priorities, or that I personally would agree with these without seeing everything else that's on the list. You know what I mean? So then, this is same thing as what we just talked about with the facility condition assessment, which really generates that list and goes through all the buildings, and then helps you prioritize. But yeah, I know. I mean, the very first one they want to spend $25,000 on is to renovate the Parks and Rec building, right? And that's the other part of that is where renovate second floor programming space, flooring, and ductless splits. So when you say renovate the second floor, are they changing? Is it space changes? Is it just flooring that or are they painting? I mean, a maintenance budget that pays for expanding spaces and building offices, it's not really a maintenance item, right? I mean, that's just how the town has had to do it. So I think for my personal opinion, it would be great to see the entire list and see how they did prioritize these 5 or 6 projects for next year before we can really answer that. But, and I'm not questioning their judgment. I guess it's just, if this is just the tip of the iceberg and there's other ones this is all they can afford, that would be understanding. But, I guess that's where I question a little bit about some of these projects, if it's really renewal or they're just trying to make program changes and use this budget. Maybe it's
does it make sense for us to put on our agenda for the next meeting maybe a conversation with DPW on that list, and if there's any other items?
Yeah, how do we? I mean, so Russ obviously isn't here, but how do we make a formal? Do we have to write a formal request to say can we see the entire list of?
No, typically just send that to either to Jen and Jeff and.
Yeah, I'm sure Jeff has a long list, and that this was cropped out. And then it would be good to say, okay, why are you choosing, this year to do some of these projects? So if there's another one, so expansion, where is TO? Town office, expansions to second floor offices and meeting rooms. It's $15,000 for HVAC improvements. I mean, what is that? How critical is that, right? Is that replacing mini splits? Is that adding air conditioning to Dave Sharple's office? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
which he truly deserves.
Yeah. Can we give him a $500 window AC instead? Instead of 15,000. But
How about some ice cubes and a fan?
yeah. So, I trust Jeff and I trust the town. I just, as far as being able to answer that question, I guess those are the questions that I need answered.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions on that or any comments?
The only other comment, Peter, I'm not sure if that would, if say they decided to take a project off the list, it looked like they had more behind it. So I'm not sure it would suddenly open up money that we could use for an FCA.
Well, but it becomes a question of priorities. And the question is, the FCA versus whatever is the next priority on their list. And whether or not we think and are willing to argue either with the Budget Recommendations Committee or with the Select Board, whether this FCA is critical to us being able to do the job they've told us they want us to do. And so, whether it's a complete offset for the FCA or they want to use it for something else on the list and automatically, rises up, we've got to make a decision, I think, personally, whether we want to dispute the automaticity of that process. Because obviously, whatever we've done so far hasn't worked to penetrate that this is an important project. And it's critical to what we think is our job. Now, if you guys who have had experience with this stuff, if you don't think it's critical for us to get that done, then I'll follow your lead because I'm not an architect or an engineer. But that's just my personal opinion.
So do we want to invite for the next meeting DPW or solicit some information prior to that so that we can actually have a more in-depth discussion about that?
I would agree. I mean, to follow up with what Peter, sorry, Chris, I mean to interrupt you, but I would say that it would be really helpful to get more information, which is that full list of their projects, and then have these discussions with them about, is there an opportunity to put some of these off to give us $15,000 to $20,000 or something to start the FCA? But yeah, I think it would be good for them to explain that to us, or I don't want to say justify but at least to give us the background.
Okay. We'll add that to our list. I had a conversation just on a Rains Farm piece, a conversation with Bill Campbell just on next steps for that. And he was recommending a tour, kind of to give a quick update that they're doing some work on the property to keep the pigeons out. And that potentially in the upcoming weeks is to do a tour of the facility. If people are up for that, or whether we want to, there's nothing really ultimately this year that they're going for above and beyond the budget.
Well, what is that budget? I mean, are they getting funded something for this pigeon work or other things?
I think that was already either funded to the Conservation Commission, which I believe is where it comes from. I'm not sure very specifically where exactly the money comes from, but that's my guess.
Yeah, tour would be fine before the snow falls, I guess.
I don't know if they've moved forward with any kind of long-term visioning for the property. I know they have some general ideas about the use, but I think they have some just general repair stuff that they're looking to try to get done at some point in time. Okay.
Well, I think it'd be helpful. It would be helpful to take a look at the property and then have him at least kind of tell us whether it's the grand scheme of things or the grand vision or whether it's the immediate future when they're looking for money.
Right.
Because Rains Farm, with all due respect, is in the same category of priorities from my perspective. It's a good thing, but it's a nice to have. And while we don't want to let the building fall down by any means, and we're happy to get the LCHIP money, and I know we have to put some money up against that to be able to get the LCHIP money, you have to ask again whether things like that are more important than the FCA or other town building projects. And, and as Mark said, we don't know what those other town building maintenance projects, unless we see the list that goes beyond this year. But it would be good to get a tour to actually see what they're talking about.
Yep.
I think.
All right, so we'll try to navigate that with some of the other things we want to get done before the budget season is over. So we'll keep that on the list. The other item we had obviously was our recommendation letter for the public safety and for the DPW complex. One of the things I did want to talk about was, did everybody receive and look at the information that was forwarded regarding the DPW complex?
Yeah, you mean the project scope and then the update from LaSalle? Correct. Yes, yeah, I did see that.
So just to give you a, so we had both this right here, which was the kind of just basically the contract piece of it and their scope of work. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this was their scope of work and kind of their project plan. And they endorsed, this is what they endorsed right here, which is $150,000 to flush out some of the issues required to complete the facility programming. The date of this was in April.
Well, that's an update from 10/15, it says, at the very top.
Right.
So the contract is what they entered into in April. This is an update in October. And then that one line there, that's kind of not what we were looking for in the sense that it just says endorse $150,000 to flush out all the issues. That kind of lacks the specificity we were looking for as to what that 150 grand is for.
Correct. And so it didn't really clarify what we had asked to be clarified. The other one, which is this piece right here, which again went through, this is the letter really going through the project, kind of where they are to date, with a scope outline. So this is really what more the scope of work.
That's what they agreed to. Yeah, that's what they agreed to do and have done to date almost, I think.
Yep.
And that was pretty detailed. That's a pretty detailed list for only 25 grand.
Correct.
I don't remember seeing this. Did Russ Dean send this, or was Jennifer Perry?
I forwarded it to right after the last meeting.
Russ did it? Okay.
Well, it was from Russ, and then I forwarded it to the group. And then there's a program of the existing building, so that, here's kind of the total square footage. So it's about 13 plus 2,100, so about 15,000 square feet, which is where that 15,000 square foot number comes from. That's in the documents. There's a set of plans which here's the garage, which we walked through, the maintenance building, the sewer garage, and then the offices.
Yeah, it's the existing, right?
Go ahead.
That's the existing
Correct.
building? Okay.
This was a bubble diagram of the relationship diagram of the different department pieces through the facility. And this is a conceptual schematic layout, which is where the yellow is the size of their existing garage. And so this building right here is about 40,000 square feet.
It's huge.
It's huge. It's so it's basically a parking garage for.
Sorry, just to clarify, the pink.
Maybe pink to yours. It's
Yeah.
yellow on mine, but this shaded area here.
Right, is the existing.
That's
And then this.
the other perimeter. The rest of it is the diagram for the new. I'll take that off. That's the new plan.
Thanks.
So included, some office functions up front, basically garage and then repair bay here.
So, I mean,
go ahead.
so I don't have I should have my CIP in front of me. I'm sorry, I don't. But when they priced this building for the numbers that are in the current CIP, weren't they just pricing a 15,000 building?
Yeah, and also to that point, Peter, Rob, if you scroll up to the last page of the letter. Yeah, right here. Yeah, so under fee where it says added cost, so third-party estimator. So that $25,000 doesn't include any cost estimation of their new plan. And that third-party estimate, which is what we're recommending for the public safety complex, that's going to be an additional cost for this.
Yeah, the CIP put in a cost estimate based on a 15,000 square foot building. I mean, if this thing is 40,000 square feet, 35,000 square feet, then, we're talking, if they have now, they had 5.1 million when it was 15,000. So if it's 35,000, we're talking a 10 plus 11 plus $1 million building just on square footage alone.
Yeah, you could be right.
I mean, when we talked to Jen and talked to them about considering, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rob. What did you say?
You were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I mean, when we talked to Jen about new missions and moving admin staff in from the other building into this building, I mean, I have to ask you guys, did any of you contemplate a 40,000 square foot or a 35,000 square foot building?
What I didn't contemplate, and I know it's been talked about, is that to do basically a parking garage for all the facility vehicles. So, one, I'll put my two hats on. One is that from a sustainability standpoint, to heat, cool, and to ventilate that entire area or some portion of that entire area from an operations standpoint would be massive. You're talking about garage doors open all the time. You're talking about, people in and out of there. I'm not sure from a program standpoint how you get to the idea that you're going to. I understand there's snow and I understand that, but I don't get it.
So Rob, I mean, I'm trying to look at yours and then scan through the letter, but is the proposed that this is enclosed, like, or is it just that
This is an enclosed building.
okay.
There's a garage door here, garage door here, garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door, garage door on either side of this, one in here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to your point about the ventilation and the mechanical system needs for something this big with storage for fleet vehicles. I mean, it's not just heating and air conditioning. It's ventilation, it's exhaust, it's massive. Then you're going to get into fire protection.
Yep.
That's why I was wondering if it's just the occupied spaces are where and then this could be expanded to do it where it's more of a covered parking. I mean, it'd be huge, but okay.
Yeah, or even if it's enclosed, it could be, conditioned a lot less than, say, the more occupied areas. Where the trucks are, you could let it be a lot warmer in the summer, a lot colder in the winter.
Yeah, you don't have to have the heating part of it, right? But you have to have a pretty sophisticated ventilation system, though.
Yeah. My assumption is they're going to be working in there and repairing vehicles and doing other things. So similar to what they have now is they have a big, huge Modine heaters in the corners and things like that. So yes, you may get something more specific in the repair bay. But I'll just tell you this from my own experience of having a garage for certain vehicles at the hospital is that the salts and the dirt and everything else that comes into a enclosed space has a significant impact on the building itself. So I just don't want to go down the same road as other projects which start out as 15,000 square feet. And I think this was Peter's concern early on, is that now it's gone from 15,000 to a much bigger building. And we don't have really a kind of a master plan for that area. I don't even know where a 40,000 square foot building would fit on that site. So some gaps in the information. And I thought
back in the letter too, there was a note about a survey of an adjacent lot. So I don't know if maybe they were thinking that lot could accommodate a garage like that. I don't know. I don't know what that site looks like, or the adjacent lot.
Develop conceptual site plan and show new building and existing. We assume there is some available survey work.
So yeah, that seems like a lot.
Let me ask you
this point stands.
What do we? I mean, if we had seen a 40,000 square foot building for, I don't know, anywhere from $10 to $15 million in the CIP, would we have been comfortable with basically approving the 150,000? I mean, we asked for.
Look at the date on here. December 2019.
Right.
This is 4.5 months before we did our walkthrough.
But are we sure that this is still valid? I mean, what we have right now is the agreement that was put in place, right?
This is the latest update from the project.
It's not part of this letter that was signed on April 3rd, 2020.
That was the initiation of the project, and then this is the output of it to date.
Yep.
I mean, I guess that's my question. That we're sure that these are deliverables from what they did.
They might be progress. They might not be final.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that site plan you have, Rob, is dated December 2019. This proposal isn't that for the scope isn't.
This, I believe, is what they did out of that budget from last year.
I see what you're saying, Mark. Like the scope of the project was initiated in April of 2020, where this sketch was done 5 months before that. So
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this was the original concept and that they've grown, that this isn't valid anymore, that they've
I think you're right.
processed through the work that they've done with LaSalle, that that there's a different deliverable. I guess that's my question.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It was interesting for 25. I mean, they're doing quite a bit. They've only been paid what, 15 or 17,000?
I think it was 18.
18.
They still have 7 left. Yeah. So it's in there somewhere.
So this says, so we're dated on March 17th, and process is that they're to finalize programming and overall floor plan.
Right. I just don't think that we've seen the deliverables. This is the agreement, which is good, but I don't think that we've seen that. I don't think we've seen those deliverables from this.
But do you think that the agreement is based upon this sketch?
I think that was an initial sketch that was put out there that probably generated some of these discussions. But I don't think if that's the dated like December of 2019, then they would at least have changed the date if this was an updated deliverable. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, Rob, if you go to the other document, the update, that'll tell you task to be completed there. Take a look at that. Task completed to date. So, yeah, there's nothing in there that they've completed a proposal for a new floor plan.
It says they spent to date 18,000.
Yeah.
Oh, so tasks completed to date of the first 6. Tasks to be completed are
The next 3.
update initial floor plan to now a preliminary floor layout.
Yeah. So they have, you're right. They
Right,
haven't
so,
provided that yet.
well, they've provided an initial sketch for DPW comments. The question is that the 40,000 square foot building, or is that a much smaller one?
We don't know.
And so I guess we have to, get Jen to go through that with us to give us a better setup. I mean, again, they didn't tell us what the 150,000 is supposed to be for. But now we don't know what building is the concept, what size building is a concept. And I do want to say that endorsing the 150,000 to flush out the issues might be a little bit Freudian.
Well, I think we endorsed the 150 as long as there was some specificity to developing the final plan for the garage and also a campus master plan.
Well, yeah, that's right. But again, you guys never answered my question that said, did we ever in our discussions of this building, would we ever have agreed to $150,000 to take the next step for a building that was $10 to $15 million?
Just as a quick aside, is that these tasks right here are still part of this $7,000 balance. These are tasks to be completed.
It says tasks completed to
Those
date.
are done. Those are done, and I would assume they'd be billed. I would think it'd be the next 3 that would.
Yeah,
For 7,000.
Yeah, that's the 7,000 for those last 3.
yeah.
And then so 150 is for question.
Yeah, the 150, that's what we need specificity on. I don't know if that includes the third-party cost estimator or if that's something the town would have to bear. I mean, to me, that's pretty critical. Once they have a preliminary floor layout, we need a rough cost estimate of it.
Peter, on your question about 150,000, if it's a $15 million project, 150,000 probably doesn't buy you much.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a wrong number to put in, and I'm not saying it's a wrong number for us to approve. But and perhaps I'm just labeling my own bias or perspective here, but
So I'm going to go.
I'm a lot more comfortable putting $150,000 against a for the next step of a $5+ $7+ million building, then I am taking the next step for a $15 million building.
I think that if I look at what has been delivered, there is a sketch. There is some sort of sketch, initial sketch that's been delivered.
Yeah.
I can ask for that document. Because I mean, we're talking about things that we're not exactly sure of, and I don't know the answer either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be comfortable because like a lot of that building that I see that's 39,000 and change, or the 40,000, is just a big Butler building for parking, and I would not attach a $250 square foot cost estimate that.
No. Yeah.
That's not even close. So those are like $15 to $40. You know, like I'm not throwing. You know, it's not even close. So I wouldn't times 39,000 and change by the 250 to get to I wouldn't assume anything, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I will contact Jennifer. I'll send her an email. I'll talk to her tomorrow, and I'll get what some real information to base it off of, because that initial sketch has been done, and I'll make sure that either confirm that that's it, or I'll get the initial sketch and send that out to you folks.
That'd be great. That'd be very helpful.
Right.
So I wanted to bring it up just before we talked about our recommendations here, to say what do we want to recommend, and are we still good with that piece? And we're still, I think, have a few holes in what we requested to make that recommendation.
Yeah, we need more specifics on the DPW. One of the things on the agenda too, Rob, is an earlier item. You said you had BRC comments on the public works facility. I mean, the public safety complex.
No, just in general, that was part of our agenda, is to coordinate part of what we talked about last time, which was the cross coordination between the BRC and ourselves prior to us submitting our recommendation for both these projects.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember that. I thought that might have pertained to some comments you had received from them.
No, I haven't gotten anything beyond.
Well, one thing Peter and I can, like, Bob Kelly made it clear next week it's not a formal meeting. We don't need to exchange letters or anything, but Peter and I could flesh it out with them, maybe to see what we would like to include in a letter of recommendation to them. I mean, we can talk that out with them.
Perfect.
Before we authorize anything and send it along. So. I think their process is, I think they said Bob said there's 3 weeks, and they have to, I forget what the timeline was, maybe CIP recommendations in 3 weeks.
Yep.
So we'll just want to make sure that if we are issuing a letter, we'll want to get it to them before then.
It's a good timeline. Any other, Peter, on the recommendation piece, do we want to just continue with what we have currently for a draft and then revise it next time?
Yeah, I would think that. I think that hopefully it's an easy, what's the word I want? Hopefully it's a straightforward explanation for the new DPW outline or building or whatever the heck it is. And Dave makes a good point about, per square foot costs related to that. But we really don't know what we're recommending in two ways. A, we don't have any details on 150. B, we don't really know what this project is going to look like in the future. And so I think we need that before we fine tune our recommendation for the DPW. And if the budget committee has some specific issues about that, as well as the public safety recommendation, we just ought to hold it in abeyance. Everybody's got the draft, and, we'll just amend that pending further information. Because I don't think there's anything to write correctly right now.
Agreed.
I already sent Jennifer an email asking her to talk to her tomorrow if she's available. So
Good.
I'll try to turn this information. I understand you're going to try to go for funding for the other thing this year and write the BRC. So I'll talk to her. Well, hopefully, talk to her tomorrow and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
Dave.
Dave.
You're welcome.
Thank you, David.
All right. Any new business?
I have one thing, if I may. I told you of the update of the Public Safety Commission. I got two firms working on that to come back, and I told them not to put too much effort into it. I was looking for kind of a ballpark figure, but knowing these couple of people, they're going to take they're going to give me a pretty good number. So I'll be fairly confident, so we can inject that into the CIP if it's different than the $200,000 number that we have in there. Also, I wanted to tell you, I talked to you about, you asked about the ADA study that kind of was, it was rolling ahead, and the people were going to go forward to the select board, and I had some comments, and it was in draft form, and then the pandemic hit, and that was one of the things that took a back burner. But I have coordinated with disability access consultants who did the study. I am having a conference call with them on Monday, and I will be able to provide you information on that study, as soon as it becomes available. But I'm working on it. I'm still working on it, but I will get you all that information once I can get it finalized.
Perfect.
So when we were talking about the maintenance project list and maybe finding out what else was on the list, some of the top items, do we want to consider doing a tour to see, like, for instance, the Parks and Rec, since we don't really have any clarity on what, we threw around a whole bunch of different ideas of what that might be, but we don't really know what it is. Should we see it? I'd like to do that.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I think that kind of brings up one of our things that we had talked about before, was to try to start to get out and see as many of these facilities as possible. I think that's a good one to put on our list, and, relatively easy to get into and be able to see it. Obviously, the town offices are right there, and so maybe it's it's a kind of a walking tour, and we do a couple of buildings.
No, that sounds great.
I would argue trying to do as many of them as possible as part of a walking tour, just to get a sense of how dire their conditions are.
All right. With nobody else has any additional items, we have some continuation of our recommendations for the public safety and Parks and Rec for next time. Potentially we could, I'm not sure how much time that's going to take, but we could probably modify the schedule to maybe throw in some tour pieces into the next one, which will help us with looking at the list. If we do the list and kind of take a tour, do the list, and finalize our recommendations.
Rob, can I just add a little bit more information? I was just crunching some numbers, and just for the team, for the committee, and I'll share this just in general numbers, but for our campus, when we did the facility condition assessment, we did about 1.4 million square feet and gross square feet, and the overall average square foot cost was around, I think it was around 5 cents a square foot. So just to give some relative numbers, that's the whole scope. So anyways, if we total up the square footage that we have for the town, I mean, that would give us a relative number, I think, although it gets cheaper as you have more square footage, right? So,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You could probably throw 10 cents a square foot at it for us.
Good, excellent.
We did have we had a spreadsheet of all the town properties, right? Did that have all the areas?
Yeah, and there is obviously through the tax office, they have a general idea about the square footage of the buildings and things like that. So it's relatively easy to get the information quickly.
do you think it's around 500,000 square feet, or is it less?
No, I think it's less.
I would think it would have to be less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, but I could be surprised. Who knows?
So we might be able to get that number.
I can check that. I have the Primex, the insurance. I have all the things listed, their occupied space, their unoccupied space, all the square footage of everything. So I don't have it right handy, but I can get that.
Thank you, Dave.
Great.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
I beat you, Peter.
All right.